Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Peter Barber. I am primarily a professional opera singer, music producer, and a bass vocalist. And today we are back for the first time in so long, and I regret that it's been this long, with Nightwish. Now, if you've been with my channel for a while, you know that I've already made a video for one of their versions of the Phantom of the Opera. That was with Tarja, one of the older singers. This version, and with Marco, this version is a new recording of Phantom of the Opera with Fleur Jensen, their new singer, with Henk Poort, who I have not heard Henk sing yet. And since I'm a professional opera singer, this seems like just a great song for me to continue the dialogue about Nightwish on. So I'm very excited. I literally just looked up, I was like, you know, I haven't done Nightwish in a while. Looked up Nightwish. This is the first video that popped up, so here we are. Guys, please do like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please leave a comment for the algorithm, because be as simple as saying, hi Peter, or Nightwish is awesome, or Friend of the Opera rules, Phantom of the Opera rules. Doesn't matter, all good for the algorithm. And this is a reaction and analysis video, so I will be pausing primarily to talk about the vocal technique used by the singers, other artistic and musical choices as I see fit. And my goal with this channel, it really is to enhance your musical and listening experience. I really want to bring value to your lives. You know, this channel is primarily educational, secondarily entertainment. So you do get the first time reaction from me, but my goal with the pausing and everything is to analyze so that I can help you guys appreciate what makes these singers so awesome. And if I am adding value to your listening experience, please do consider joining my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Me and the rest of my 250 Patreon family members would love to have you there. So please do consider checking that out. Link is also in the description below. And without further ado, let's break down Nightwish, Phantom of the Opera, their updated version, I think, from their latest tour. Let's do it. From Amsterdam. I would love to go to a Nightwish show sometime. So something that's so cool about Nightwish, as far as I know, is their lead singers are all classically trained on some level, so they can actually sing with classical and operatic technique, and it sounds really good. I remember being really blown away by Tarja, hearing her sing this song. Really phenomenal stuff. So that's point one. Point two, Phantom of the Opera is not actually an opera. It's actually a musical theater piece. But when I tell people I'm an opera singer, it's usually the first thing people think of, because it's so popular and opera is literally in the title, but it's actually musical theater. So you would see Phantom of the Opera on Broadway in New York. You would never see it performed at the Metropolitan Opera. Just a fun fact. Although it is kind of more classic sounding, so singers, when they sing it, they do adopt a more operatic technique generally than singing standard musical theater, which is very different from operatic technique. Very, very different. But even so, it is still technically a musical theater piece. But I like that they, at least in the last version I saw of this, they really lean into the opera style of it, and the drama of it, and the passion of it, and the darkness of it. Really like their last version. So that's all to say that. Now let's talk a little bit about Fleur's opening lines here.
That voice which calls to me and speaks my name.
So what she's doing is she's creating a little extra space in the pharynx to give a little bit of that warmth to the sound. It's very classic for opera singers. And she's starting out this piece in a very intimate, breathy place. You know, she's not just ripping high notes and belting. That's where we get later in the song. Right now we've got this drone instrumentation happening in the background, just like, and she's kind of floating above that in a breathy fashion. Of course, very intentional. She's keeping it very reserved for the moment to give the song a place to build. something there we get just a second. Now, when female opera singers are performing, it is most of the time in a head voice, a very powerful, strengthened head voice. And the higher the voice type gets, the more often they're likely going to try to remain in that head voice. When you get down into the low mezzo-soprano or contralto range, they will actually opt for chest voice a little more often, because that is that also is a powerful place for them to sing. But you talk about like a light lyric soprano or a coloratura soprano, they're going to try to stay in the head voice as much as possible, because that's really the mechanism they can strengthen most. They'll only dip into the chest voice, the pure chest voice, when they really need to. But here we there's just two notes that Fleur sings in pure chest voice, and then she kind of flips up into the head voice here. Just want to flag that. Into. So those two pitches are chest voice, and then she goes up. And you can feel there's just a little bit more chest connection to the sound, a little more body to the sound. It's closer to natural speech. So you can hear she starts that phrase, and then by the end of it, she's actually dipped into her chest voice for just necessity of the range. Wait, here. You can hear how it gets a little meatier at the bottom. Yes. It's so much more badass than the original. Octaves on the synth.
Sing once again with me a strange duet. My power over you grows stronger yet.
So obviously, so male singers, when they're singing opera, it's pretty much entire, unless you're talking about a countertenor, entirely connected to the chest voice. It's basically like healthy, controlled yelling. I mean, functionally, that really is what we're doing, male opera singers. And women are healthily breath-supported screaming, because when you scream in your head voice, and when you yell in your chest voice. And it is really that loud. Even louder when done well, because it's an efficient form of yelling and screaming. Fascinating stuff, really. Here we go with Hank. Hank coming in here. Hank. It ain't Hank like it is in America. Hank, like a Poort. Hank Poort. Yes? Something like that? Comes out of the gate. Very, very efficient vocal fold use. So as high closed quotient during each oscillation of the vocal folds. They are together the majority of the time. That means you're going to get a lot of brightness and a lot of cut in the sound, which means his singing would likely still be pretty loud even without microphone. Loudness in a voice generally comes down to breath support and vocal fold efficiency. Those two things predominantly.
Sing once again with me a strange duet.
And he's only allowing vibrato to come in on the longer pitches, which is very common in musical theater. In opera, you would want vibration the whole time. Like just constantly vibrating. That's bel canto technique. In musical theater, it's like so you only have vibrato on those longer pitches.
With me, a strange duet. My power over you grows stronger yet.
All right, Hank.
The phantom of the opera is there inside your mind.
And he goes down there at the end. Fleur went up. Inside your mind. He went down there. Now this high note, the word, now I know there's a language barrier, so the accent, like they sound a little bit singing, they sound different than Americans singing this piece or English people singing this piece. Just because of the accent, there's like slight variations in the vowel. That's of course expected, right? At least to my English-speaking ear. But I want to comment on the vowel he uses in this high note. So generally when you sing this, you're going to go, the phantom of the opera is here. And he goes more towards like fe. Fe, fe, fa, fe, fa, fe. He just opts for a slightly more closed position, which is either because of his accent or is because that's just a more comfortable vowel. And vowel modification is super common and should be done for singers, especially when singing high notes, whether chest voice or head voice. You gotta do what works best for you. You gotta do what's comfortable, because the goal when singing a big high note is an optimal sound. The vowel is far less important. If you sing the perfect vowel but it sounds like shit, no one cares. If you sing a weird vowel but it sounds amazing, everyone's like, do that. So he opts for a slightly, instead of phantom, he's like fe, fe, fe. It's more like an eh. So again, could be the accent, could be just works best for him. And he sings the shit out of it, so like, who cares? And you can tell it's right here. Fe, fe. He really puts it like right here in the mask is what you call it, instead of like fa, fa. It's like fa, fa. It's much more forward placed. Up a full step. And isn't Fleur like a solid 6 feet tall? She's like a Valkyrie. And she's still opting for this more like pleading, kind of intimate, breathy sound, as opposed to Hank, who's just coming out the gate belting. Now here we can't tell volume. I would think Hank's voice on microphone would be louder, just based on the kind of style he's approaching this with. If Fleur gets up into her upper range, the tables would probably turn. But for now, I would say his voice would probably be louder. But because of microphones, amplification, you can perfectly balance voices that are not the same volume. It's a great utility of the system, one that you don't have when singing opera in an opera house. There are no microphones, so you have to balance naturally. Musical theater, microphones. Every genre except for opera and like classical choir, there are going to be microphones, unless you're talking about like maybe some acoustic set at like a tiny coffee shop. But even then, usually there's like a small amp. Love the octaves. That's right, insane breakdown in the middle. Oh. What's crazy about this sound, and it even like tricks my ear sometimes. I just know intuitively what's happening. There's all this grit in the sound now. He's actually singing in the same octave he was earlier. He's not singing like a full octave down or whatever, the key change slightly, right? But because of the grit, it's activating this kind of grit is activating the false vocal folds to make kind of a growl sound, which does produce a subharmonic an octave lower. So it makes the voice sound like it's way lower than it actually is. If you listen to a band like Five Finger Death Punch, so that guy does have a low voice naturally. You can hear when he does his like low vocal fry stuff. But when he's singing like those big, super gritty metal belts, they're actually pretty high, but they don't sound high because of all of that false fold engagement in the sound. It's very deceptive to the ear. No, those are the pitches he's actually singing, but it does not sound that high. So up to E flat 4 does not sound up to E flat 4 with that grit. No, it sounds like it's an octave lower, but it's not. Now Fleur, at least in this part of her range, she opts for a very closed position, which can be useful. If she went up way higher in her range, she would want to open that mouth up. But here she's like, it's like very closed and contained. Oh, that was actually kind of cool. You could watch the video in real time, and there's a sound delay because it takes sound a minute to get to the back of the theater. So you watch their mouths on the video screen. That's cool, right? It's like a half second. I think sound goes like 730 feet per second, so they're probably like 300 feet away, 200, 300 feet away here, so there's a slight lag. Very interesting. There's a big mouth. So I believe, and this is no shade at Fleur, it sounds to me like Tarja had more operatic training. If I'm remembering correctly, it has probably been a year since I made that video. But there's just a little more kind of power and groundedness in the operatic singing. Fleur's doing a great job, but I think it's just worth pointing that out. I know someone had said Tarja had trained pretty extensively in operatic training. So I don't know the comparison. I don't know exactly what their backgrounds are, but just off the top of my head, from what I remember, I think Tarja had a bit more of that operatic sound. Inside your mind, sing for me, my angel of music. Music. Up to an A flat in chest. Sing for me, my angel of music. The phantom of the opera. Sing for me. You got high notes though, big time. Sing my angel of B flat 5. D6. So a D6 above soprano high C. And throughout this whole section, she's got great control of high notes. Great control of high notes, perfectly in tune, all this stuff. There's a little bit of vibrato coming in, especially during some of the longer pitches. But if this were a really well-trained opera singer, it would just be spinning freely the whole time. Whereas usually for Fleur, there's vibrato usually coming in on the long sustained pitches, and then C sharp or D6, which is obviously absurdly high for anyone. It's pretty much straight tone the whole time. But again, like that's to be able to mimic an opera singer in any way, if it's not your main career, like if your life's training is not to be an opera singer, like it's a really, really hard technique. It takes people, 5, 10, 15, 20 years to get proficient at it, and most people never do, to be quite honest. It's a really hard technique. So I mean, my hat is off to anyone attempting to sing operatically, and to be able to mimic it in any capacity, to me is like you have my respect, because it has. I mean, I was absolute shit when I started singing opera like 10 years ago, and it has taken until now to be considered good, singing at a good level for an opera singer. And that is dedicated, like that being my main focus in singing for the last 10 years. It's why I have so much respect for someone like Dimash, who I do know trained classically, and who sings, in my opinion, he's the best non-opera singer that I've heard so far. Just like, dude has like very solid technique for not dedicating his whole life to that one genre. Anyway, let's keep moving forward, but I think it is worth pointing out the differences between the singers I've heard in this group and their strengths and weaknesses. B flat 4 in chest voice from Henk. So you can tell it's just like it's a healthy. It is effectively a healthy breast supported scream, like a vocally efficient scream. That really is what's happening way up high in female head voice.
Dames en heren, Henk Bart!
I love you!
Whoa. Okay, I will subscribe when it doesn't click me away. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Yeah, really cool to hear this song done by two different sets of singers, and just to hear kind of like what they do, their strengths and weaknesses. Now, this song is obviously going to favor someone with more classical training. That's obvious. But really cool to hear both. I had a lot of fun diving back into this song. I forgot how badass Nightwish was and how badass this cover of Phantom of the Opera was. It's phenomenal. I need to do more Nightwish, and I'm sorry to all the Nightwish fans that has been so long since I've made a video for them. They are truly an amazing symphonic metal ensemble, and I will try to hear them live someday. I think I would have an absolute blast. Big shout out to them, guys. If you learned something, if I enhanced your listening experience, please do consider joining my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. It's the best possible way to support me. And otherwise, like, subscribe, comment, leave hit the bell for notifications. Check out the merch store. I'm now wearing my hat again because I haven't plugged my merch in like a year. So if you like this hat, it's, I think, the most popular item. You can check out my Etsy store with all my merch and support me that way. And otherwise, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the support. Much love. Peace.